I want you to imagine a classroom, and in that classroom, um, I've often heard it said that by second grade, by the end of the second grade, you can tell which students are really going to struggle in school and they're going to struggle in life, and possibly based on their economically disadvantaged, their reading ability, and certain situations, you can even say that that child may end up, there's a great probability that they'll end up in prison. There's research that's out there to support that. There's a book called From the Cradle to the Cell, and just by being born in a certain situation, this child will end up in jail. So let's say that this child with the red face represents that individual who's going to end up in prison or end up dropping out of school. Now, the interesting thing is that the majority of the teacher's time will actually go to this child. And I don't know what percent of time it could be. I would dare to say that it's anywhere from 60 to 75%. And so the rest of these children in the class, they are actually being hindered by that one child. I'm not blaming that child. Actually, I am saying that there's a neglect there, and you can see the research of a child's brain that's been neglected compared to a child's brain that has been nurtured and cultured and basically raised up by parents or individuals that are involved. So what I'm suggesting is, what do we do to intervene with these children? And I believe that there are some simple things that we could do that would really change the course of this child, which also impacts every child in that classroom and impacts the teacher. One thing is, I believe we need to have a position created, and I would call it a culture coach. Okay? And I use that not in any sense of saying one culture is superior than the other, but what we see is that a culture, every culture, has a handful of things that they do. And you can see this in history, you can see this in different civilizations. But so what happens is we bring this child under a culture coach, and in an ideal world, that's a parent. A parent comes along and raises a child to basically have certain things that they feel involved in, that they feel a part of, that gives them an identity and a purpose. And so when it comes to making decisions, this child realizes he has some choices and that he's responsible for his own actions, and he chooses to make better decisions based on the idea that he actually does have something to lose. We have some students and some children who they feel like they have nothing to lose because they are not part of a culture. They haven't been cultivated. They haven't been poured into, and they've been neglected. So let me tell you what a handful of those things are. First thing is that every culture recreates together. And I'm going to shorthand this. They recreate together. And what I mean by recreate, it could simply be recreational sports. It could be something like when I was a boy, my grandfather would take out his pocket knife and would peel an apple to where it just had one long peel. And he taught me how to do that one day. And I felt pride and I felt a part of something bigger. I had a student one year that would come to me and ask me to peel an orange for him. And after about 2 weeks of peeling his orange, I said, "Do you not know how to peel an orange?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "No one's ever taught me how to peel an orange." And I said, "Well, sit down. I'm going to show you how to peel an orange." And after I showed him, he went around and he peeled 5 other students' oranges. It gave him a sense of pride. It could be something like that. It could be teaching them how to throw a knuckleball or a spiral football, or maybe some holiday tradition that's passed on from a parent to a child that gives them a sense of belonging to something. You know, as adults, we like to participate in some of the activities and that we were taught as a child. So the first thing is that we recreate with that child. The second thing that we do is that we celebrate. Okay, We celebrate with that child. If you think about it, the school systems at large are structured in such a way that that the same children are celebrated. You know, the same children who make all A's, they're celebrated by the report card, by the end of the year, by the achievement. And I think that's great. And largely in part, those kids are celebrated because they have this cultural coach already with their parents. But there's some kids who the only time that they're celebrated is in sports. And so, of course, they want to grow up to be athletes because that's the only celebration. Celebration is important. So we want to come along and we want to celebrate with these kids. If you think about in the classroom, this child here with the red face, he never has cupcakes on his birthday, while these other children always have cupcakes on their birthday. So you see how celebration is an important part of cultivating a child, of giving him a worldview. Thirdly, we want to listen to this child. Every culture listens to the future generation, to hear the stories that they're believing, and to get them on the right path. And that goes right along with the fourth one. The fourth one is tell a story. Okay? Tell a story that this child can feel a part of, that they can continue being part of this story, that they see themselves being inserted in the story, starts giving them a direction. And then here, fifthly, we want to bless this child. We want to randomly bless this child. If it's with, buying them something or doing something for them just to bless them. We have to be involved in their lives. And these are very simple things. And then sixthly, every culture eats together. Okay? And so the power of sitting down and sharing a meal with someone, that's a rich cultural thing that if you look at this, these are 6 things that are just not happening. Parents have checked out for one reason or another. Nobody's teaching them how to recreate. Nobody's celebrating with them. Nobody's listening to them. Nobody's sharing stories with them or blessing them or even eating with them. And so this child's left isolated by themselves. So what if somebody came along and would do that with them? You know who's doing a really good job with this with the young men in America are the gangs. They come and they give young men a sense of purpose, sense of identity. They have meals together. They bless them in ways, of course, that are corrupt or things like that are dangerous, but they do that. They tell them the history of the gang. They listen to them. They celebrate with them. They recreate and have parties. Also, there's a surge in this with groups like ISIS that are targeting our young men who are isolated like this. So I honestly believe that if we created a position in the school system where someone would work with these kids, they would be with these kids from 3rd grade through middle school to where they're doing this. They are going to the meetings with these kids. They are investing into these kids, and it would radically change the outcome of their future. When I did my research, my doctoral research, one of the same things that we saw is that a person's worldview is pretty much set in stone by 12, 13, 14 years old. And so we want to help give these individual students a worldview that's in a positive direction, so where they realize I have a couple of more choices in life. Honestly, choices are not unlimited, but I have a couple of more choices that could change the course of outline in my life. And so that's what I'm saying. But right now, school systems are not structured in a way for this child to be celebrated, to be listened to tell a story. The teachers are overwhelmed. A classroom teacher is overwhelmed. They can't do their job and pour into the student. So what if we created a position and we took a handful of students and and the teacher, the mentor, the cultural coach poured into them. I think it would radically not only change that student's life, but it would change the classroom and the teachers.